Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. Now I've shown you sassoon flutes and penny whistles and so forth, but there is a group of flutes that I'm going to call the conical flutes. Conical flutes mean that they don't go straight up and down. So let me explain the difference. If I'm taking a penny whistle, and this is in the key of D, it doesn't matter what key it's in, and if you notice it, it goes, the metal is straight. Let me move it over here. The metal is straight. It goes all the way down. It has the tone holes in the front. It has the mouthpiece on the top. But there's no change in the size or the shape of it. It's one straight piece of metal. They're all brass. They're all colored or they have some kind of a covering, usually silver, but some of them are gold, and they have different kinds of colors for the tops. But this is straight up and down. This is a cylindrical instrument because it's straight up and down. Then if I were to take another instrument, and I guess I'll take this one right here. This is a Shaw's. If you look at that, that comes to a point. It narrows as it goes down. So this is a conical instrument. It's conical because it is not all the way straight. If you can see that it narrows and comes to kind of a point, so that the opening at the bottom of it is a lot narrower than the opening would be at the top of it. There are various interesting things about these instruments. This is a Shaw's instrument. It's in the key of E, which is unusual. Usually these kinds of instruments you don't find in that key, but it's in the key of E. It's pitch perfect. And you will find another odd thing about it, and that's when you look at the mouthpiece, I'm going to hold it straight out, you can see that there's a wooden plug in it. Some of these conical instruments have a wooden plug in it. I'm going to try to, I think you can see it better if I do it this way. You can see the wood. That means that the opening where you blow the air in is very thin. It's a very thin opening. It's going to look to you like it's a black line. But there it is. And so when you look at this, the mouthpiece kind of slants. Now they don't all do that, but this one does. It slants, and it has that wooden block in it, and it has just a narrow place where you put your air in. And the shape of it is that it becomes narrower and narrower, and it comes down to a point. So that's a conical instrument. Now, what it does, what difference it makes is it makes a softer tone. First of all, you're not blowing into it as much. You've got that wooden block that's gonna stop some of the air. It has the labium in the front, and the labium is a little different too, because what you have in a recorder for the labium, you have a little area where it slants in, and then there's a little window at the top. But with one of these, you just have that little square at the, well, it's actually a rectangle at the top. So there is a difference in the way these mouthpieces are, but they're very similar in the way that they work, but they are designed differently. So this is the recorder with its mouthpiece. You can see how that labium is. You can see that slanted area, and then you can see that little black area. It's just black. It's open. It's an open place. With this one, all you have is the open place. But what difference does it make on the sound? Well, I'm going to show you what it makes on the sound. When I play it, it's going to be a softer sound, and you're probably going to like it. Now, it may sound like it's a regular tone, but it is softer. I can push it to make it a little louder, just give it more air. What a lot of them take more air. You have to blow a little harder to compensate for the fact that that block is there. But that's what it is. It is a conical flute coming to a point with a wooden plugged Fipple mouthpiece. And that's what it is. I call it a wooden plugged Fipple mouthpiece because it's basically a Fipple mouthpiece, but it plays a little different with that wooden plug. Now I have a few more. That was a Shaw's in the key of E. Now I have two that I want to show you that are produced by Clark's company. Clark is in England, and this is going to be in the key of D. It has that same characteristic. It has the wooden block in the back. It has a little kind of a rectangular opening that acts as a labium. There's no gradual entrance to it. It doesn't slant in. It's just there. It comes to a point so that it's smaller on the bottom than it is on the top. And you do have a change in the size of the finger holes, which you would expect in any good instrument. They're going to accommodate your fingers, so not all of the holes are going to be the same size. And you have just that little place in the top where you blow in. So I'm going to try that. This is remember, this is a Clark's, and I have two of them. I have one in the key of C, and this one is in the key of D. It's a little softer. That's the way that they are. If I wanted to push it to get it louder, I can, but what's going to happen is it's probably going to squeal. That is a squeal. The squeal is called an overtone. An overtone is actually a note, but it isn't a note that you want to necessarily play. It's just there because you gave the instrument too much air. So it's a little harder to play. It takes a little more air. It plays softer, but it's in pitch. It sounds good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a little different style of what the mouthpieces are. Now, the other Clark's, as I said, I have is in the key of C, and it looks a little different. It's by the same company. It's black. But it has the same thing. It has that wooden plug in the top of it. It has just that little area that you can play, put your air in. It's not going to be so visible because it is black. There is that little rectangular piece that acts as a labium, and then you have your tone holes in the front. And it's actually very attractive to look at. It has like a little diamond. I don't know if you can pick this up or not. It may not be visible. Here, if I tip it back, you can, I guess. Little diamond shapes. It's just a decorative thing between each note. Why they did that, I don't know. The instruments were the same cost, and they sound about the same, except they're in different keys. So let me try this one in the key of C. Now on these instruments, I mean, this is a good instrument. You just have to recognize it's going to be softer. On some instruments, if they're not of the highest quality, you're going to find that the higher notes will flatten and the lower notes will sharpen. But this is a good quality instrument, but it's just something to keep in mind when you're buying an instrument. If you're checking the quality, is the instrument in pitch with itself? Does it pitch perfectly with the other notes, with all the notes that it plays? And this one does. Now I have two others that I want to show you. These are sweet tones. and I had them in last time. They're made by Clark. They're the same company as made the Clarks with the D and the C, but this is a sweet tone. I have one in red and I have one in green, and I brought them both in. They're conicals, they're narrow in the bottom. The mouthpiece, however, is much like a regular mouthpiece that you would find in a penny whistle, and it's more like a fipple mouthpiece. It has a labium, it has in the front, it has a little slanting area before you get to the labium, and it has that little place. It's just like a penny whistle. If I were to take a penny whistle mouthpiece, and I'm taking my D, that's put out by the generation flute, you really are not going to see much difference in them. They're about the same. So this is going to play more like a regular penny whistle plays. So let me try it, and you'll see what it's like. Plays 2 octaves, plays just like a regular penny whistle. It is actually a form of penny whistle, but it is conical in the sense that it's wider at the top than it is on the bottom, and it kind of comes to a point. I say it's a point. It's not that narrow, but there is a difference in the size from the top to the bottom. This is my sweet tone in red, and when I bought them, I bought a green one to go with it. This is exactly the same thing, so it's going to sound the same. But what I like to do is I like to show you the varieties that you can get in instruments. Different types of mouthpieces, but very, very similar in the way that they work. You'll notice that the high notes are shrill. You'll find that in many penny whistles. Actually, the sweet tones, the conicals, all of those that have that wooden block in the mouthpiece, they don't sound as shrill as a regular penny whistle. If I play a regular penny whistle, and I'll grab my D again, that's kind of shrill before you even begin. The high notes are shrill. That's the way they are. That's the way all penny whistles are. But when you get the conicals, or when you get those with the wooden blocks in them, they're not as shrill as a regular penny whistle is. This is my penny whistle in the key of D. This is a generation flute produced by Generation, and most of mine are. Then I had a couple of other things. Here's a little melody flute. It looks like a recorder in a way. It's not designed exactly the same, but it's on the same principle. You can get a lot of these little instruments that are similar. They record alike, but they're not true recorders. And some of them play fairly well, and some of them don't. You do have the labium in the front. You have the tone holes in the front. In this case, the tone holes are raised a little bit, so you can see they're not flat. You know, it's not like there's a little hole in the instrument. They're actually raised. And in the back, there's a little place where you can put your thumbs. But there's no tone hole. This is just a convenience for you to know where you put your thumbs. And so it does play. Now you notice that high D is a little bit out of tune. You'll find in the less expensive instruments, as I said before, the high pitches, the high range tends to flatten, and sometimes the lower one tends to sharpen, although I didn't notice it so much here. That's not sharp, so that's all right, but the higher pitches will sharpen a little bit. I had a couple of others I wanted to show you, just for the fun of it. Do you see this? This is a little recorder-like instrument. You'll never guess where I bought it. Maybe I shouldn't say. I don't know. It's legal, isn't it? I bought it at Wendy's. I walked in Wendy's one day, and sometimes they have a little little area where they have toys for children, and this was it. And I said, wow, does it play? So of course I had to buy it. In fact, I bought two. They didn't have, they didn't have them all out. They were a little hesitant in letting me take two, but I bought two. It's the same shape as a recorder, the same style as a recorder. It has the labium on the front. It has your little opening for the labium. It has a tone hole in the back, just like recorders do. Because you can't pull it apart, you'd break it. It's nothing that you would ever want to, break apart or try to clean. It is small. It's about the same. It's about the same size as this little guy. This is the smallest recorder made. It's a Sopranino. It's about the same size, maybe a little taller than the Sopranino. They both have their tone holes in the back. The tone holes are about in the same, arranged in the same way. So it's amazing. So can I play it? Yeah, after a fashion. You notice that the lower note, it isn't pitched with itself. The lower note is very, very faint, but it does play. Very soft, but it does play. No octaves or anything, I don't think. Well, I'm surprised. It does do an octave. But you'll notice when I play it, not all of the notes are in pitch. That if you play just the lower register, the notes are in pitch with itself. But if you join it to the higher register and you go down through the scale, then you're going to find it's not in pitch with all of the notes. It changes its pitch right there. But it's playable. I was surprised by that. I did pick up two recorders just this last week. And here's one of them. It has Dora the Explorer on it. Now, why wouldn't a kid want to have something like this? And then the other one just like it, except it's a different character. I'm not sure what this character is. It may be from the Dora the Explorer series, but I'm not sure. But here they are. And they look like recorders. They're shaped like recorders. They've got a tone hole in the back, both of them. They've got the labium in the front, both of them. I like the purple. I like the color. Now, do they play? That's another question. After a fashion, you can get a few notes. Now, there is a little, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little white spot right there. And they both have that same little white spot right there. And in the back, they have another little white spot right here. It's the same place, but it's just in the back instead of the front. I have no idea what that white spot is, but they both have them. And as far as playing them is concerned, they were concerned about, I think, getting the little decorative person on there, character on there. So therefore, they made the thumb holes really very close to each other. It kind of plays a little, but you certainly can't say it's in key. It sounds almost alike. That's not much, is it? It makes some sounds, and they are kind of like tones, but they're certainly not in pitch with each other. But I thought that was kind of cute, and I got them, just kind of to bring in. A lot of places sell little instruments that really aren't worth buying, but on the other hand, they're kind of cute, and kids like them, so I thought I would bring them in. That's how I get too many instruments, Rick. I see them and I buy them. Sometimes I buy them just for the color. Well, I'm going to close it here because I really don't have time to get into anything more. I am going to do a special segment just on mouthpieces. I've kind of given you an introduction to that today, and also the last segment, just to show you what the differences in the mouthpieces are. They're very similar, but it does make a difference in the quality of the tone of the instrument that you're playing. And sometimes when you're playing a song, you want brash. You know, you want brash. There are other times when you don't. You want a softer, quieter tone. You can pick your instruments on the basis of the mouthpieces. And I want to say, in terms of mouthpieces, if you're playing saxophones, or you know people that play saxophones and clarinets, they usually have a favorite mouthpiece. And if they want to change the quality of the tone of the instrument, they will get another mouthpiece that's a little different in terms of its shape, and that can change the tone of the instrument. So it's not unusual to get different mouthpieces for the purpose of changing the quality of the tone of an instrument. And I'm talking about saxophones, clarinets, and so forth, instruments that are reeded. And so we'll go into that probably next time we meet. We'll go into different types of mouthpieces. I'll have that all sketched out. So I'll close it here. Please join me next time.